ultimately, doesn't matter. Does it really matter what logo is on Tiger's shirt? It doesn't.
Yes, to a lot of people that buy the stuff.
As long as it's red, as long as it's red on Sunday, and still not convinced we're going to see Tiger play a lot more on Sundays, but I know.
I think he'll do. So. I think he should do private label. What is happening, people? No putts given. How you living? Tony and Chris, we're back. We've been racking up the airline miles and, making sure we're visiting all those wonderful OEMs out there, making all the golf equipment and things. And we're back. Whew. We're back. How many lounges did you visit?
Let's see. I think only a couple. So I didn't go in many on the last trip. So spent some time in a lounge in Atlanta and then Detroit. two separate Detroit lounges. Didn't even make it into the little one in San Diego this time. So
it is one of the small joys once you get to a traveling situation. The lounges. I figured I have to basically eat roughly $100 worth of food over the year to make my lounge access credit card worth it. So, hey, United, you are losing money on me. But anyway, speaking of deadlines, which I wasn't speaking of, but it doesn't matter. 12/31. We're almost there. It's the end of the year. This rumored PIF PGA deadline is nearly upon us. A lot of news out there, Tony. Does it happen? Does this thing get done between the PGA Tour and PIF by 12/31?
It seems like with every passing day, it becomes less and less likely. I don't know how much urgency anybody is feeling, though. Some have suggested, right, that Jon Rahm buying Jon Rahm, essentially what PIF did. They purchased Jon Rahm for $500+ million. Was kind of the shot across the bow that was basically, look, we can keep spending money like this until we get it done. We'll buy everybody if we have to, because I think we kind of knew it, but I think it's fair to say, like, everybody has a price. We know through equipment contracts over the years, for example, that PGA Tour players, they're mercenaries to some extent, to no small extent, really. And so at some point, the money will be worth it to everybody who gets the offer to go. And like I said, so they can do this as long as they want. And, maybe it's in the PGA Tour's best interest to get this done.
I think, that's the way that I read that too. And we can, talk more specifically about Rahm at a different time or whatever, because really, to me, it has nothing to do with Jon Rahm himself. It has everything to do with the message it sends, which is, like he said, hey, we can play this game as long as you want to. And the conclusion you're going to come to is the same one you should have come to already, which is,
we have more money than you. It's endless. We'll take everything slowly, but yeah.
Yeah, I was during one of our recent trips. We were on one of the bus rides in a very windy area of South Carolina, and
that was an adventure.
That was an adventure, and we were sitting there chatting with Jay Wall over at golf.com, and trying to understand, because it's the money is so ridiculous. It's really, it's hard to wrap your head around, right? Like, just to conceptualize $1 million. What's $1 million? And then 10 million, and in these crazy numbers. And basically, what we were talking about, and he had kind of worked out the math, or somebody kind of sent the math to him, that what they spent on Rahm would be the equivalent of you or I going down to not even Starbucks, not your local roaster, Tony.
Not my favorite local roaster?
No, but going to your local favorite gas station and getting like that, cheap as hell Frappuccino or, gas station coffee, whatever, that's, 86 cents or $1.50 or whatever. That's what they spent on Rahm. A cup of coffee. It's nothing.
No.
Nothing. So
it's kind of funny. Like, you want to choose a side maybe, but the more I stepped back and thought about it, it just you sort of realize it doesn't matter. The PGA Tour as a whole is a pretty crap product if you really step back and think about it in terms of the interest level, the way it's presented. We've talked about TV problems, tournaments that by comparison, compared to most any other sport that would occupy a large slot of TV time on the weekend.
Right.
Your basic tour tournaments nobody watches.
No.
Live is not going to be much different. It'll have an audience just like the PGA Tour does, but on scale, nobody cares. Nobody's going to watch it. Doesn't matter if it's on NBC or if it's on CW. It's just not going to garner that much attention. And again, as we've said countless times, there are 4 to 6 tournaments a year that matter. And the 4 that really matter, only one of them, none of them, right? None of them are controlled by the PGA Tour.
Mm-mm.
So
no.
One for the USGA, one for the RNA, one for the PGA, and not the Tour.
If you want to argue the players, right? I mean, you can put
okay, but again, that's one of the kind of maybes. Even if you're doing
about the top 7, top 8, like say okay, in throwing the Ryder Cup or something else in there throughout the year, and you're talking top 5, 7, 8, golf events. Okay,
whether it's billions or millions, 7-figure deals for live guys, 8-figure deals we're talking, I guess, right?
Right. Yeah, many cases.
Or 7-figure deals, 6-figure deals for tour players.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody cares. Nobody. It's not going to increase viewership. Yeah, there's some chatter like people are going to watch less. At a minimum, it's going to divide the audience so long as PGA Tour and Live exist as these separate things. So nobody wins except the guys getting the millions, I guess. So good for them. But at the end of the day, you have 2 crap products instead of 1, and still 4 majors that matter. A couple of slightly elevated tournaments that maybe matter a little bit more than the others, and still a bunch of filler. PGA Tour filler, Live filler, doesn't matter. Filler is filler. Majors are the only thing that matter. So everybody might as well just get paid. Burn it down at this point.
And speaking of that, there's this other rumored, right, call it roughly $3 billion dollar investment that's, again, purportedly close to finalization, may happen, seems more likely than not. But again, this is that private investment, a multi-billion-dollar deal between the PGA Tour and Strategic Sports Group, a bunch of well-known billionaires that manage other things.
Who cares?
That's the question. What does that mean then? So because the only thing people
it's
had
not
heard about,
like, however, so that's kind of what I settled on as I thought through this. The fundamental problem in all of this is that you have a bunch of uninteresting events that don't attract top talent, that nobody really wants to watch on a level, again, compared to other sports that occupy those type of time slots on TV. And none of this changes it. Like if you start pouring more millions in, it doesn't change anything. Maybe if you find a way to go commercial free. I mean, my God, if soccer can figure out, why can't golf? If you can figure that out, maybe at least you can get to the point where you don't have that to complain about, right? Like, but you when you watch more more commercials than shots, and that's just part of it, right? Again, because this all feels pretty meaningless until you get to a major.
Yeah, well,
money doesn't change that.
No, and at a very, very basic level, what we're talking about is a lot more money being invested in the professional game. So what happens when there's this massive cash infusion potentially into the professional game? Well, you got to think then, right? Everybody wants to get paid. So what does that look like? And do you create more of this, well, maybe it's not a good word, but bifurcated reality in professional golf, kind of the haves and have-nots? Is it, where does it all go? Does greed overrun everything? Blah, blah, blah.
That for sure.
To me, it makes the professional game less interesting. The more money is involved. And again, I get it. people are professional golfers. People that are professionals in anything want to get paid for what they do. If you can get paid more for doing what you're doing, of course you're going to go down that route. But that doesn't mean it's all good. So that whether or not this money, I guess these companies that are investing the money, like take this, sports group. Okay, if they invest $3 billion, where's the ROI for them? Like, to me, that's a question. Like, they're not doing, these people that would be investing that money aren't donating it, right? They want to make 5, 6, 7, 8 billion. So
I don't know how you do that. I don't
How
know
are you going to do that given the current product? Like, there may be some kind of, like, in your mind, how could they potentially recoup that investment and make their money back plus
you're going to have to sell a lot of hats and jerseys, right? That would be how you looked at it in other sports. And again, so maybe if you look at it from the PIF/Live side, if you can get more buy-in on this team stuff where people care enough to buy jerseys and buy hats, but I don't know. Like, are you going to put up luxury boxes on the golf course? I mean, if you look at how money is made on the other end, are you going to charge more tickets for people who want to see this stuff? Are you going to try and get a better TV contract? But again, like I said, nobody's watching on scale. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if it's going to be more player involvement. If it's, that let's say players get a greater share, a greater opportunity to access some of that money. Is it by making their time more available? Is it, I don't know.
And maybe it's plugging other things they own, right? Investment bank accounts and investment firms, things like that. All the stuff we see commercials for, is that a way to bring in money to other businesses they own and pump those up? Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. But quite frankly, if I had the money to choose, which would you invest in? The PGA Tour, whatever form, or an MLS team, for example? Like right now, like I'd put the money in an MLS team.
Right.
Which
I'd be investing in Costco, and we're going to talk about our friends in Kirkland in a minute. But to me, that's the most interesting part of this thing is, what does it actually mean? How does it fundamentally change the product, and does it change it for better or worse? And I guess we'll have to see. Do you smell smoke, Tony? Because where there's smoke,
there's distance.
There's distance. Yes, there is. It's teaser season.
That's quite a non sequitur, isn't it? Like, where there's smoke, there's distance.
All right. So teaser season. Where there's smoke, there's
distance.
There's distance, and who doesn't want some smoke if it
or
is
distance
accompanied by
distance? Like, I'm not sure which of those I want.
You want it all. You don't want this smoke. Yes, you do want this smoke. Anyway. What is teaser season, Tony? Why should people be interested in this?
Yeah, this is like that weird point in time where like nobody's going to talk about their products, but they're gonna tease them, start showing them off. You can pause videos. You can save images and go to Photoshop and lighten them up a little bit to get a look at what's coming. But this is like where everybody starts to tease the new stuff without saying too much, get you interested without the details, get you excited. I don't know. It's lather, rinse, repeat, man.
I know. Maybe we'll have to come back and vote on what was our favorite teaser.
Right now Callaway's a runaway winner, but it's also the only one I've seen.
Early. So. It's the only one we've seen. It's early. It's this, like I said, this delicate dance between, things that we know that we can't say yet, which is the reality of the embargo world on one end. And then on the other end, people have leaked images, they have names. Once something's up on the conforming list, once it gets put in play at a tournament, then pictures are out on the interwebs and people are guessing.
I mean, that's the thing, right? If it's in play in a tournament, the pictures are fair game. That's the rules, long established. People know these things.
Right. So and quite frankly, I was talking to one representative from a major manufacturer. They said that's actually kind of good for us. Like we're getting extra eyeballs on a product that's yet to be released. and they're paying $0 for it, right? So that's a nice little marketing angle for them. So we can't say everything, but I'm going to be interested, yes, to see how creative some of these companies are with it. The, smoke, fire.
I didn't see any fire.
Maybe I was just well, if there's smoke,
because usually when there's smoke, there's fire. But this time, where there's smoke, there's distance.
Yeah, maybe there's fire. I don't know. We'll have to check on that. But if you see any other teasers out there, let us know, because I think they're kind of fun to, when you know what the end product is, to see kind of how they're backing into some of these and some of the things like, again, the Callaway one, all the numbers that they were flashing on the screen there, especially the 12. That was one that was very interesting to me, and we can't say just why yet, but it's interesting. And with that, it's almost time for 2024. We have a full slate of testing coming up, Tony. What's on the docket? Where are we at now? How fast can we get some of this stuff out there?
We are in the acquisition phase of Most Wanted. So, reaching out, figuring out who's going to send stuff, which stuff we are probably going to have to buy this year. There's always a little bit of that. So,
yep.
I think we're going to have to buy PXG Gen 7, right? That's looking like that's a thing, right?
Looks like that's a thing. I'm assuming that's what it's called.
We're doing one way or another. We're going to test some of the crank stuff that Bryson has reestablished on the map. So we'll see if we've reached out to them. Maybe they'll send it. Maybe we'll buy it. But one way or another, going to try and get some crank in there.
Mm-hmm.
We have done away with our policy of not testing something a second season. So if it is current at retail, it will be tested this year, all categories.
Love that. Love that.
Yeah, we heard plenty about that. We're doing that. And I think probably early February for Most Wanted driver, how we're tracking. And then we'll see. We're optimistic we're going to be able to accelerate the testing cycle this year because, as you know, but some of our listeners may not, we are in the process. We've closed on the building in the process of doing the interior build on our new test facility /HQ. So doubling our bay capacity, putting in some new technology on the putting front. Big things coming, I think. Kind of grand opening type thing happening February, March-ish. Don't put that in anything other than pencil. But yeah, that's kind of where we're at. So stuff is arriving at HQ for sure. The boxes are piling in.
So to all of you out there that say, hey, God, can't we get... I know I get this request all the time, Tony. When are fairway woods coming out? Because we love your articles, Chris, on fairway woods. And we cannot, tens and tens of us cannot wait because we want to know that. The good news is it might be sooner this year than previous years. And then moving forward, might even be able to accelerate it even a little bit greater to try to get people that information earlier in the buying season.
That is the plan, right? That's why we doubled the number of bays, is to increase and accelerate output without having to cut back on what we think are the important things, like the number of testers that participate, the number of shots.
Mm-hmm.
We're
not cutting corners.
That back.
No. Nope. Information will be as good, if not better, than previously. Just we may be able to get through the test a little bit quicker. So I love that. Speaking of actionable information, which is what our data provides. I was down with Scott.
There's the segue. That was better.
That was a little better.
We kind of loosely spoke of that this time. Not just you.
Well,
Speaking of Donkey Kong.
I was down in Texas for a day with our good friend
Yeehaw!
Scott Fawcett. Yeehaw! Scott Fawcett. And I got to tell you, actionable information. Like, there are stat tracking things that are out there, and I think that you got to find the information, right? But information itself is kind of a commodity. You can get your swing speed, right? A lot of different ways. You can get strokes gained. I mean, strokes gained it's just math, right?
Oh.
You can get that. But what do you do with it? What do you do if you know A, B, and C and how can you actually use that to help yourself shoot lower scores? That's the question that Decade aims to help people answer, and it does it in a way that's different than anybody else. So we got some cool stuff coming. That's kind of my own teaser season. You were a busy man. Is it the government?
That is actually Mr. Newton.
Oh, hello,
from
Mr.
the
Newton.
Top
Yeah,
Golf Callaway Company, checking
the-
in to make see if the samples had come yet. So
That's good stuff. That is good stuff. All right.
getting ready for embargo season. So
Right, and we, like I said, we can't talk
writing,
a lot about
photographing, yeah,
a ton of the stuff that's out there yet. We can't talk about all of it, but we can talk about a couple of things. What's this Wilson Fit AI thing? I saw this pop up. Patrick Harrington
I
said,
think it's the
hey,
Mizuno Swing Analyzer.
is that what it is? With a Wilson name on it? Is that what it is?
I mean, it's
Talk to me
similar,
about
right?
this, Tony.
Yeah,
What do we got?
It's interesting, right? It's powered by the blast sensor at the end of the club, but you take 5 swings and it makes a shaft and head recommendation based on a mix of Wilson data and input from fitters on what they've ultimately chosen for guys whose swing parameters match yours. And we'll throw AI in the mix because
Okay, we will.
you gotta have AI now. But yeah, I mean it
Everybody
reads a
does.
lot like what Mizuno has done for years, and I'm sure there's some differences and some proprietary tweaks. But if I'm being honest, when we look at all of these things that kind of fall under the umbrella of the future of fitting,
Right.
this is more of this one reads a bit like more of the present of fitting to an extent. So
Okay.
we'll see, and I think it's good for anybody to have a tool like this. I think every manufacturer should have some sort of fitting technology that is above and beyond. Hey, if you can go to a TXG, great. If you want to pay for some of those other fitters, great. But for a big box store, for example, or just about any other scenario, any type of call it fitting technology, call it AI, whatever you want to call it, anything that gives the fitter a head start, I think ultimately is good. And we also have to realize that not everybody has access to fitting locations, comprehensive fitting locations with full shaft catalogs, all of that stuff. So anything that simplifies the process, anything that makes it a little easier to get yourself into something that fits your game better is ultimately great. But in terms of like breakthrough / groundbreaking, hey, it's good for Wilson here, like I said, but the on paper read is this isn't wildly different than some of the stuff that's already in there.
Yeah, the thing I think the thing that I like the most about this product, which is similar to, like, so what I like about what Mizuno's done over the last 3, 4, 5, 7, 8 years with that is 2 things. One, for a fitter, hopefully makes their job a little bit more efficient. So you don't spend the first 30, 45 minutes eliminating all the bad answers, which is what I think these products kind of do, which is great.
Absolutely.
So it says, hey, it's not necessarily this is the exact head shaft combo that's better universally than any other one out there, blah, blah, blah. But if this can remove, let's say there's 100 options out there for you, maybe this removes 95 of them and says, hey, these 95 are not optimal. One of these 5 remaining ones is going to be optimal. And now you can spend the bulk of your fitting time comparing and contrasting maybe these 4, 5, 6 options. I think that's the real value of a product like this right now. Is that the future of where fitting's going? I don't think so. We saw some stuff out at Ping that I think is more in line with what something like this could become, and the stuff that Ping is launching. And I don't want to talk about too specifically because I don't know what's out there or not yet, but that what Ping is doing is the future of fitting, I think, at least on the kind of current horizon. But I think this is something that will get people to maybe try Wilson products, and that maybe they haven't.
It's a win. Yeah, absolutely.
So there's that. Tony, I cannot wait to hit the Kirkland irons. I think they're revolutionary. I think they're game breaking. I think you're not buying what I'm selling. Tony, my question is this. why all the hype and pomp and circumstance around Kirkland irons and then a driver? Why?
Costco's got a following. It's a loyal following because they're
they got $5 they have $5 rotisserie chickens. They got a following.
And if you hate it, you can bring it back later and get all your money back. Very few, if any, questions asked. And so, like, there's great policies at Costco that people love, but in terms of the reaction to the golf equipment, I roll on this because I step back and kind of look at it objectively. And okay, I get it; it's cheap, and that's a huge selling point. And sure. I suppose you can argue accessible, though, if you don't have a Costco membership, not so much, right? And I would guess the majority of golfers probably do not have Costco membership. So I struggle with to an extent, the accessibility argument versus, a Sub 70 or a PXG or Tacoma or any number of brands. Any number of brands where you can go get something for as little money as a Costco product costs in some categories.
Right.
But objectively kind of looking at what we've seen, right? The first 4-piece ball, which is funny, right? You can still buy that ball under different names, but
sure.
Nobody's interested now because you can't get it with the Kirkland logo on it. Right. That ball is really good. Mm-hmm. The 3 since have been excessively spinny, not something if you make the argument that Costco makes it easier for a starting golfer. The last thing I would recommend for a beginning golfer is a really spinny golf ball. So I don't think they're helping anybody there. The second 4-piece, the follow-up, right? Single-use cover disappeared, hasn't come back. Yep. The wedges, the putters, it's a putter. The wedges are mediocre performers, but again, they're dirt cheap. And so, that's the argument. If you want to spend the least amount of money possible on golf equipment, Costco's got you covered, but there are very few other situations that I can think of, especially those situations where there are quantifiable performance benefits or deficiencies, or something that is that needs to be tailored to the individual to perform at an optimum level. There are very few scenarios where you would go, I'm just going to get the cheapest stuff because it's accessible and I like the company. That's the thing. And it's kind of a cross and vertical. Like, okay, Costco's done really well selling bulk food and discount jeans, and the vodka here is awesome. But if Ping, who has a long-standing reputation for making very forgiving golf clubs that benefit a lot of golfers, all of a sudden started selling bulk mayonnaise, I'd kind of scratch my chin and go, you know what? I maybe don't want to get that. So, I don't know. Like I said, I get that it's cheap. I get that there's a loyal following, but from a performance perspective, I struggle. I
wonder if, we talk about this all the time. Golfers have long memories, right? And part of that is I wonder if the first ball, like you said, was really good, right? That came up particularly for the price that it was at. If people are painting this picture of like, hey, Costco kind of has this deal, right? That its Kirkland signature stuff is basically going to be on par with market leaders, whatever that kind of means. So I wonder if people aren't just looking at that going, hey, those wedges, Costco doesn't have anything to hide. I bet I'm getting Vokey wedges. Okay, I bet I'm getting TaylorMade irons. I bet I'm getting a Callaway or a TaylorMade driver for pennies on the dollar. For $200, I'm going to stick it to the man, and you know what? I'm getting those Kirkland, because you can get the $1.50 hot dog lunch. You can get. I just did this last week. I went and got the $5 rotisserie chicken and ate the whole thing. Great $5 meal. I think people are probably going, hey, that's it. $499 for some irons that are on par with ones that are 2 to 3 times as much.
And I think that's kind of right. If you look at where other Costco products come from, they are made, basically white label by some of the leading brands, some of the top brands you and I would buy in a grocery store. Right. That's not the case with the golf club. the ball is not a rebranded Titleist as some people have surmised. Like Titleist doesn't have anything that would spin like that because it's a piss poor design with really bad arrow. I mean, there's a lot wrong with that golf ball. No manufacturer is.
Are you sure it's not a Titleist golf ball?
Yeah, right. Sure? It's just a lot, and same thing with the wedges. It's not. They're coming from like these third-party factories, right? They're open mold designs. So yeah, you can, a lot of this stuff, if you dug hard enough, you could probably find on sale elsewhere through other companies, but they're not Vokey wedges. This is not a rebranded TaylorMade or Titleist or whatever other driver that somebody looks at the sole design and goes, "Oh, that kind of looks like that." No, this is third-party Asian factory. Not nearly the same as what you're getting from the OEMs, especially in the driver category. Dave was talking about it on our call this morning, right? Where it's, the sound isn't great.
Yeah, you're not getting a $600 white label Callaway or TaylorMade driver for $199. You're just not.
You're getting kind of that Asian factory open mold stuff,
right?
And is what it is. And again, like there are. The law specs are a little different, but go check them out for yourself. Go to the SMT website, right? Component company, been around for a long time.
Sure.
There's an SMT design that looks, and I'm not a guy who's like, ooh, that looks like this other thing. No,
everything looks like something.
Yeah, but there is an SMT design that borders on identical, a little bit different in the law specs. So kind of perhaps some slight changes there, but in terms of the cavity design, the stuff that you can see, it's very, very similar, and it's price competitive with the Costco one. So, this kind of thing, you can find it elsewhere. And maybe you want the Kirkland guarantee and things like that. Again, I get it. But let's not build this stuff up like it's, Costco is revolutionizing the golf industry with, on par equipment. They're giving you a cheap option, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I think it's important to keep it in perspective as well.
Absolutely. And one more plug for the rotisserie chicken, man, because $5 for a whole chicken, and they're big. They're good. Last week,
can't get a chicken from Titleist. I'll tell you that.
No, that's true. Last week we were out at ECPC, that being the Callaway Performance Center. What can we tell people, Tony? What can we share about our experience out there? For one, I was super impressed. In a word, I was impressed. What are your initial reactions?
Was it Newton's haircut? Or just really?
It was a combination between Newton's haircut and Loper's haircut. That's what was most impressive.
It was. It was an interesting experience. I think. What I would say is, if you look at kind of how the products have changed and evolved, we can say this, right? You just sort of get the sense of, maybe this time around Callaway did some more listening to consumers and than maybe in the past, where like, some things are different that I've long said needed to be different. And it goes
so they basically listen to you by consumers. You.
Like I said, my suggestion on the golf ball was fairly obvious anyway. Yeah. But there's some different stuff there. Some different stuff with the irons for sure, where we came away like, this is surprising for many reasons, and none of them are bad. The drivers have been good for a while, but I don't know. Like if I were to say, you hit I didn't hit the TaylorMade stuff because I wasn't feeling well when I was there, but we've hit TaylorMade, Cobra, Ping, and of course Callaway.
Yeah.
Give me your favorite so far. And again, this is just one-on-one. One guy's opinion.
Yep.
So for all you data people out there, not data driven,
an N of one is insignificant, right?
This is just an opinion. That's all.
Just an opinion. So I can't deny that out at Callaway, I haven't hit a driver that good maybe ever. I was just, combination of things. And the numbers were really good. Feel was good. Launch, everything about it was really, really good. Like, based on that day, I would have taken that driver, put it in the bag, and not look back. So it's hard for me to put anything ahead of that one for right now. That would be the bar that I would start measuring the other ones against. I think different philosophies on some things, but it's a better looking and feeling Callaway driver than what I think I experienced the last time I really put a Callaway driver kind of through
And
the
the
paces.
time before that, and the time before that, and probably
the time before that. And like
yeah.
I said, there's some things, like you said, that are decidedly Callaway, but the changes that they make, people like go, oh, I didn't see that part coming in a good way. Like I said, all of those changes I think have been beneficial. But I would also say this is that driver head combination stuff alongside ball is going to be a big deal. People matching the loft launch conditions to the correct ball. It may or may not be the correct ball from what you were playing before, depending on what you're looking to optimize. And so Callaway's making some pretty audacious claims that, again, we can't go into just yet. But based on my experience, I have reason to believe that there's some fidelity to these claims. And so, it was impressive. So I'm going to put it's hard for me to put anybody above that one right now. Again, just based on N of 1 and some of that. That's that's where I'm at today. Fair? Maybe? I don't know. It's my opinion. Of course it's fair. It doesn't matter. That's why they're opinions, Tony. Buy or sell? We got 5 quick questions. I want 5 quick answers, Tony. There are rumors that Tiger and Nike will soon be never, ever, ever getting back together. If that's true, what should Tiger wear? What brand?
I mean, sure, maybe he splits it up, but if you're kind of reading the tea leaves, it looks like FootJoy, right? And ultimately, doesn't matter. Does it really matter what logo is on Tiger's shirt? It doesn't.
Yes, to a lot of people that buy the stuff.
As long as it's red, as long as it's red on Sunday, and still not convinced we're going to see Tiger play a lot more on Sundays, but I know.
I think he'll do. So. I think he should do private label, do his own line of Tiger stuff. He doesn't need any more money from Nike. Do something really cool and take ownership over it. That's my thinking. Longer. This last weekend, there's the PNC, the parent-child tournament. I didn't watch much of it at all. I don't want to, spend my.
That's weekend. More than I watched.
Man, come on. Kids are 14 years old, whatever. Just let them enjoy it. Be out there, whatever. The longer team, Bernhard and son, won, but I'm giving them an asterisk, Tony, because Bernhard played like 1,100 yards shorter than Charlie Woods. What?
That's bifurcation. If everybody isn't playing from the same tees, it's bifurcation. That's horrible. Can't have it.
I totally agree. Totally agree. Saw some other news there. Logan Olson, we've seen this putter artisan, if you will. A couple of his designs pop up recently. Scotty Scheffler's bag, Nelly Korda's bag. There were some pictures on the interwebs of indicating that maybe he was going to TaylorMade. If so, big deal or not so much?
No, well, that I would say that has already happened. The privacy policy on the Logan Olson website makes it very clear that it is now a TaylorMade company. No.
So
no
big deal or not?
No, again, grand scheme of things, it's a guy most people have never heard of making putters that most people have never seen. And I think, TaylorMade sees a lot of upside in that. But as of right now, no.
I'll tell you one person it's a big deal to. Logan Olson.
You? Oh.
Logan Olson. For him, a huge...
Logan's probably having a good day. Good for him.
We don't see this that often. And again, Scotty Cameron, iconic. Name associated with an OEM, iconic. Bob Vokey, iconic. Right? Roger Cleveland, well, it was Cleveland, but again, these names that get associated with brands throughout their lifespan, that's a huge, huge deal. Now, not all of these have worked out at different times. There have been different individuals that, for whatever reason, it hasn't worked. But if this is what gets TaylorMade into that space, particularly on tour, like Logan Olson just did a small run of, putters. I think they're calling $850, something like that. Boom. Sold out right away. if this gets tailor-made into that premium kind of space and that becomes part of the tailor-made identity in a place where they've lacked identity for quite some time, I think that is a big deal. It's a big deal for them.
High margin.
High margin, but I think it's a big deal for them. Give me a course, Tony, in 2024 that you want to knock off your bucket list.
Yeah, I anything at Sand Valley, but as I've kind of as you see stuff on the Twitters, on the shitters, if you will, the one that I see that always makes me a little jealous that I haven't been there is Cabot.
Ooh.
Up in the Canada.
Ooh.
Over there.
I love the Canada pick. That goes right. Actually, that's tied into here because the Kaiser brothers. This is going to be the development in Colorado. Is going to be kind of the, I guess, middle of the country ish, Sand Hills, Sand Valley, Ballyneal type of topography. So I'm not going to get there in 2024. I love the Cabot pick. I think that is phenomenal. If there were one other one, I'd love to knock off like a Marion. I think Marion looks phenomenal. And if I couldn't do that, maybe Oakmont. Something really old, East Coast, because I don't get to play out there nearly as much as you do. That's on mine. Finish up with this, Tony. Give me a bold equipment prediction for 2024.
What are you looking for? Give me some context here.
Give you a context. Who will be the best-selling driver, TaylorMade or Callaway? How about that Callaway for some context?
I'm going to go with Callaway this year. I think they, even though it is kind of the Paradigm 2 year.
Don't say that.
But yes, I know it's not technically Paradigm 2. Yeah, I'll take Callaway, but man, there's a lot in that QI10 lineup to like. It's going to be one of those two, I think. It's ultimately going to, I think, boil down to how well the QI10 story plays and how well Callaway can match it with not having I10
in the name. My bold equipment prediction is 20 and 20s of people will read my Fairway Wood articles this year. No, but what my prediction is that we're going to start to see the traditional 3-wood go away. No more of just this 15-degree 3-wood thing. I think we're going to see a shift toward more mini drivers where people playing 2 drivers. We've seen some people doing that, or going more into that kind of like 4-wood, 5-wood space. I think the traditional 3-wood, 15 degrees that amateurs struggle to hit off the deck anyway, we're going to see a shift away from it.
The USGA is going to bring it back just as quickly as it goes. Roll back the ball, got to bring back the 3-wood.
Well, that's true. Which we're going to get to some of that stuff in the after show. So if you're excited, stick around for another 10 to 12 minutes. We're going to talk about a couple things like CT creep. Ooh, not a song, Tony. Not a song by one of your favorite groups of the 90s and 2000s. But we'll be right back. All right. We came back. Are you standing, Tony, still? Are you how's that feel? Good?
Yeah, I like it. I feel more animated.
It's definitely harder to stay in one spot, I would imagine. So we're just going to spend a couple 10, 12 minutes here, Tony, on the ball rollback stuff. When the actual announcement came out, where were we? Because this is maybe something that's interesting.
Yeah, we were in Liberty, South Carolina at the TaylorMade ball plant.
Plenty of situational irony present in that. Literally, at TaylorMade's facility, we're going to be walking, going in to walk the floor and see the technology. As we know, they have a new ball coming out as well. and we get the announcement. And we had all this list of questions, right, that we had kind of talked about before. And so I just wanted to kind of recap now that there is an official announcement, now that we have had some time to maybe exchange a text message or two with different, maybe companies and people, and kind of get a sense of where companies are at. What do we know now that we did not know then?
I mean, not much. I mean, we have the specifics, but it's all kind of played out as expected, right? Rollback, gonna basically increase the test speed, decrease the maximum distance. We're going to cost everybody some degree of distance. We're actually going to, if you look at the math, and I actually it's kind of popped into my head. I was like, hey, wait a minute. If we look at this from a strokes gain standpoint, what happens? And I ran the numbers, a few different scenarios, and I was like, man, this seems like maybe it doesn't play out entirely how the USGA wanted it to, or how the purists who think distance is overvalued want it to. But I crunched the numbers, came up with a result, and so I texted Lou Stagner. I was like, hey, here's what I came up with. And he confirmed what I thought, and that is that with a rollback golf ball, assuming basically everybody takes a proportional hit, from a strokes gain metric, you actually increase the relative stroke value for longer hitters by just a tick. So basically, you increase the weighted value of driving distance and accuracy, that the strokes gain metric. So
it's another way to.
Yeah.
I was going to say,
so everybody will be shorter, which is what they want, but longer drivers will have it's not a lot, but a little bit more of an advantage than they have today.
Yeah, so, I mean, is that another way of kind of saying that, when you make something more scarce, you make it more valuable? So if driving distance becomes more, and we can probably debate, that, how hard it is going to be for people to achieve that. Sasha McKenzie had some interesting thoughts and stats to kind of show that, but it's not making the longer hitters even less.
No, it further rewards distance.
Yeah, so you roll it back, and
But hey, it doesn't obsolete anything, I guess, is your argument, which is damn the actual math on that either. But
right, but it tells me if that is how the math works out, and I trust your math and Lou's math and people that are good at mathing. It tells me it has an awful lot more to do about the visual element and what it looks like and how golfers are playing these courses than actually trying to change the reward different parts of the game. If hitting it even further is going to be rewarded, I don't care if it's 1% more or 10% more, it's going to reward it more, because what we've been told is that the way that it is right now today is not good. So our situation is not good in terms of the balance of skill in the game. So we're going to take the skill we're trying to address and make it even more valuable.
And we're doing that based on bad info. And I'm, excuse me, don't have the direct quote in front of me, paraphrasing here quite a bit. But so Sasha was on with Lou and Mark Crossfield, I believe, and kind of talking about the USGA and where they came from. And the take was that, the data they're using, how they've applied it, if they brought this into any peer-reviewed scientific setting, the USGA would have been laughed out of the room. And so it kind of tells you, for Sasha to say something like that, the validity of what they're working with is absolutely suspect. And we've known that, right? It's at best cherry picked. At worst, it's just kind of like, yeah, this sounds good. This is what we want. So it is what it is, but it's kind of silly. It remains silly.
And I guess with that, a question that I have is it over? I guess, and what I mean by that is, like you said, we have firm dates now, like the 2028 would be when it would go into play for professionals, and there's a 2-year grace period, so 2030 for all golfers. Do you get the sense that golf ball manufacturers are kind of resigned to that, saying, hey, yep, now we're going to kind of start just going that way? Or do you feel like there's still kind of, well, hang on a second here.
We're definitely hang on a second mode. And I say that for a couple of reasons. First, I think there's going to be possibly a regroup and some feedback from the PGA Tour, the LPGA Tour for this. I mean, fundamentally, I think if as a sport that you're a side of the sport, an element of the sport, whatever you want to call the women's game that you're trying to grow, a rollback that impacts the women's game it's comically stupid. So you have that, like the disproportionate effect on the game. Again, we've talked about this. How many tour players, what percentage of tour players actually hit it far enough to be problematic on what percentage of courses. So it's, just segmenting to levels of absolute nothingness and then applying it to everybody is ludicrous. So I think probably going to be some further input from the tours. I think, this, if you contrast, or I should say there is a massive contrast between the statements that have been released thus far and what is being said inside the ball manufacturing golf companies.
Right.
Titleist of the big brands, Titleist was certainly the one that was least kind of roll over, scratch my belly kind of thing.
Right.
So for me, that didn't sound like it was completely over. I love what LA Golf did, coming out and taking an absolute flamethrower to the USGA, calling them out for their nonsense.
Yep.
So yeah, I think. So ultimately, yeah, I think whether it comes through further conversation or this has to go the litigation route, I don't think it's over.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean it won't go through, but I think the conversation has not ended. The USGA can say we've made our decision, but there's still going to be conversation.
Mm-hmm. And I think particularly given the extent, because that was one of the things they heard back right from the company. Like, whoa, if you're going to do this, you got to extend the timeline. Like, give us, we can't implement this type of ball in 2 years or whatever the case. I think a benefit to that price from the manufacturer side is saying, hey, this also gives us time to go through some sort of process and see, if this is something that's going to go into effect in 2025, which would be ridiculous, gives them no time to stop and ask, okay, well, what about this? Or what about that?
And that's the other thing too. It's definitely going to be a multiple ball solution, because just like anything else, right? You're going to have a catalog of solutions tailored to the needs of individual players. So, some people you're going to need to kind of solve this problem by slowing the ball down. Others, it's going to be kind of the flight, optimizing aerodynamics for a new ball. Others, it's going to be spin, that sort of thing. So it's a whole catalog of balls that'll be necessary to solve the problem. What I can say confidently, and this is gonna spoil this whole exercise for a lot of people, because those who miss the artistry of the days of yore, when golfers were shaping shots and you needed to work the ball and all of that stuff, it's never coming back. We're not going back to Bellata where guys were hitting low, spinny, curving shots. Right. We know, right? The math is unequivocal on this. Curving the ball, working the ball is inefficient. Right? So straight works, and so you're not going to add a lot of spin. Again, tailored to the player, you're going to have some higher spinning offerings, but you're not going to see, for example, anything that touches spin levels of the Kirkland likely on tour, right? So the idea of going back to Bellata, forget about it. Anything or Bellata-like performance.
Right.
You're going to make the longest ball you can, and it's still going to fly straight like the modern golf ball. So, sorry, we're rolling back distance here, but that's at best all you're getting. And
it's not over.
I don't think it's over.
Was it over? Was it over when the Germans bombed Pearl Harbor? Was it over? No, it's not over. It's not over at all, and I don't know. Like I said, that doesn't mean anything's going to change, but it doesn't mean, like I said, the difference between what companies probably have to say publicly and what they're talking about.
Well, they don't have to. That's the thing. Like the
diplomacy
they don't have
of it
to,
is, but
they
should.
And again, maybe that's I'm frustrated a little bit by the diplomacy of it all, because again, what I'm hearing isn't reflected in those statements.
Right. But
there's anger, there's frustration, and so to see a couple companies basically going, well, we disagree, scratch our bellies,
right. But I think to that, if they disagree as vehemently as we think that they do, or that, then that's going to lead to something, and we'll see that at some point, sooner rather than later. So no, I don't think it's over either. There were two other things that I just thought were interesting in that notice, or in that actual document. They talked about opening the door to further limiting performance by looking at the driver itself. And they talked about two specific areas, CT creep and then kind of MOI or off-center performance. So let's go into those first. Just quick review. What is CT and what is this CT creep of which they speak?
Well, CT is the kind of the measurement used to sort of define conformance, if you will. So you put a driver face in a driver head in a fixture, drop a pendulum on it, machine measures how long the pendulum stays in contact with the driver face, and what is it, milliseconds, microseconds? I can never remember which the measurement is, but it's 239, and then you get a tolerance of 18 that brings you to 257. And so the whole idea of creep is that over time, a driver that, say, started below the limit through use gets faster, creeps up over the limit. So you go from under to over, and then the driver is no longer conforming. So they want to look at the rate of CT creep or some such.
Yeah, so the reality is, companies, when they're, let's say 230, like you said, 239 is the official limit. Then you have a little forgiveness, a little range. On
tolerance for the manufacturing, tolerance for the gauge, tolerance for the guy operating the gauge, because none of this stuff is precise to the nth degree. So
right. So
gotta wiggle.
And no company wants to make a non-conforming driver or have their driver pinged as hot or whatever the case. So if 257 ends up being the real legal limit, if you will, nobody's designing their heads to a spec of 250 or 252. That's just not, because again, if you have a plus or minus of 5 and you design it to 250, well, you could have 245 to 255. You get a point or two of creep. Now you got a 9. It's not worth it, right? I mean, it's just.
No, this one strikes me as silly at best, and it does feel like it's kind of an end around, because we know the USGA hasn't loved that people are using the tolerance as a loophole. They want everybody designing to 239, right. And we know everybody's CT targets are in the 240s, mid 240s. Thing is, as much as everybody, or there's a lot of persistent belief like that the tour players get the hotter heads. In a lot of cases, tour CT starts lower because, one, they got plenty of speed, right? And a few CT points either way is not a big deal. It's 10 CT points for a half a mile an hour of ball speed, typically, plus or minus. So, and 10's a lot of creep.
Yeah.
So,
right.
So, and the other thing to keep in mind, like the tour guys, they start off slower because they don't want to creep past. Nobody wants to have to take a gamer driver out of play before a tournament. So they're checked all the time. And so, these it feels like just a way to push everybody back down to 239, which is fine. This is not, again, because it takes, quite a bit of CT to generate any real speed difference.
Right.
Again, I feel like this is just an end around to get people back in line. I think it's almost pointless because it's not going to be an issue at the tour level because, again, we're starting lower, we're testing frequently, we're staying under that 257 number consistently. Yeah. So, yeah, maybe it keeps guys like you and me from inadvertently running into a slightly hot driver, and if that's the objective, to make sure Chris Nickel doesn't have a driver that's closer to 260 to 240, okay, but yeah.
Right. And
enjoy
again,
that one step on the fairway.
I was going to say, we're talking at most about one step, so don't worry about it. But the other one they snuck in there was this idea of driver performance on off-center hits, right? And again, these were kind of like areas of inquiry, like, hey, this is something we might want to look at or address, or whatever, where it's like, yeah, we know that what we've been trying to do is, that whole idea, this goes way back, right? The whole idea of 830 core, or, hey, maximum performance on center face hits. We've been there for a long, long time. But it's like, how can we get off center strikes to perform as close as possible to on center strikes through things like variable face thickness strategies, bulge and roll designs, types of material, thickness of faces, blah, 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 blah.
High MOI.
Why put this in there? What do you think the USGA is thinking? Or why put this one in here?
This one is like, of all the dumb shit that's come out of this, but potentially what they're talking about doing, this is the one that really has me scratching my head. And if I go back to, again, the LA Golf Statement from Reed Dickens, was one of the things he said, right? The USGA has consistently worked to make the game harder for amateur golfers. Mm-hmm. This one, you're going to increase MOI because why? Because average golfers are hitting it too straight, too consistently? No, I can't imagine, again, that there's a valid argument to support that. So, and next you're saying, oh, well, is a problem on tour? I mean, how much are you wanting to even think about rolling this back? Because we've talked about this, right? 5,900, the limit for your heel toe twisting.
Right.
How many, if you look at the drivers that are played on tour, the vast majority, and yeah, we've talked about, hinted at what Ping is working on with the 10K, and there's some other stuff coming into that uber high MOI space. But by and large, and yes, there are exceptions, and by exceptions, I mean a few guys, but high MOI is not getting played on tour. There are way more TSR 3s than TSR 2s, for example.
Or
right?
one, for that matter.
Right. These guys are not, they're not pushing the MOI limit, because MOI really benefits you as you move away from the center of the face on your impact. And while, yeah, everybody on tour misses sometimes by varying degrees, they're way more in the center of the face, way more often than you or I. So they don't really need the MOI. It's a reason why, Stealth Plus, for example, relatively low MOI driver has had plenty of tour play. Cobra LS drivers, again, these tend to be built for speed, for low spin, for distance, but not for forgiveness. And so the idea that we're going to look at forgiveness, which is something that not universally, but by and large benefits amateurs and has minimal impact at the tour level on the driver. I don't get it. Like this one, I'm like, this is exactly, if you're looking to support the argument from Reed Dickens that the USGA is actively seeking ways to make the game more difficult for average players, here you go.
Good one. Yeah.
Oh, here you
go.
Pretty
good one. Yeah. Henrik Stenson and his strong 3-wood that he used for a good bulk of his career and didn't bag a driver would like a word on the difficulty of hitting. Like, again, you take this, look at the center of the face on any tour players, 3-wood or 5-wood. They miss it. Yes, of course they miss it. But the reality is they're not missing it the way that the rest of the world is missing it. And they don't, again, you could give them a mini driver. Give the guys on tour a mini driver. Give them a 10-degree, 11-degree mini driver that's 250, 290 cc's, and they're going to figure out how to optimize it. They're going to figure out how
this
to.
This is one of the things we talked about, right?
That.
There's nothing in a mini driver design inherently that makes it shorter, right? A little less forgiving, but I mean, these guys are going to hit the center of face with that too. They're going to pound it.
It's more aerodynamic than a driver.
Yeah, and some people are like, well, what about limiting driver size? As you said, more aerodynamic. So now you have a driver that they swing faster because the USGA chased its tail in some other way. And again, that doesn't seem to be what they're going to do, but that's one of the arguments. Like, sure, shrink the driver. We'll make sure they swing it faster.
Right. And it's going to be interesting. Stick around, people, because we got more equipment, more things, all of that stuff. But as far as brand new equipment, we're going to have a lot of equipment stuff to talk about, Tony, in 2024, starting with pretty much the first week in 2024. So if there's
first 2 weeks of January are bangers. Absolute
bangers. So make sure that you like, subscribe, all that kind of stuff, so you get the news in your inbox right away, because we will be coming fresh with hot takes as per usual. If you need anything, have any questions, post them in the comments below. Until next time, we out.